Good afternoon. Welcome, Moinak, to the Development Wala podcast. I am Rahma, and it's such a pleasure to be able to host you and have a conversation on your journey as a founder and also potentially a mentor and an inspiration to many young people out there. Welcome
Thank you so
again.
much. Thank you so much, Rahma. It's lovely to be here and always great to speak to amazing people like you.
Yeah, thank you. For the first section, we would like to go back to the beginning. You were a Teacher India Fellow. Um, take us back to before the Simple Education Foundation ever existed. Who were you? What were you doing? And what was the one thing you kept noticing that you could not unsee?
To be very honest, I think before the Teach for India Fellowship, I did not notice anything at all. I was very consumed in my own world, trying to figure out what my next step is going to be. Uh, in hindsight, I do feel like there were several moments in my life which sort of once things started to happen, I
Yeah.
think a lot of those things made sense, or because I had certain experiences uh, when I was young, they enabled me to embrace certain decisions more uh, openly, more positively. But if I have to be very honest, I don't think till the age of about 21, when I was in college, I was thinking about social impact, even looking at the world in a different way, um, or all of that. I was just like a young person growing up, um, trying to figure out how to get to a good college, get to a job,
Mm-hmm.
maybe study further. So those were like I think my things. It was only when Teach for India happened. Uh, I think the world sort of opened up in a very different way. I sort of almost it's like I changed my glasses to see the world, and I think that has been very foundational to who I am today.
Mm-hmm. Right. Um, so so was there a gap? Was there a aha moment for you when you were like, okay, I care about this problem during your Teach for India journey? Was there this one problem or this one moment when you were like, okay, I'm going to build something around this? And if there was, what was it?
There were actually I would sort of break it down into two sections. One
Mm.
is where I can tell you about like some of the moments that made me feel like this is where work needs to happen,
Right.
right? And that I need to do some of the I need to probably sort of engage in this work more uh, deeply and
Mm.
intentionally. And then there were moments which sort of led me to uh, figure out what is the direction that I want to take,
Mm.
right? So very early on, and this is something that I've said in a couple of other spaces as well, very early on in the fellowship, right in the first year, I actually lost one of my students. She had dengue, and um, because she could not get to a proper treatment early when she started getting the symptoms, that led to the whole symptoms getting aggravated, and we eventually lost her. And I had dengue a couple of months after that event.
Mm.
Um, after uh, one of my dear students sort of uh, left all of us, I had dengue and I recovered fairly quickly.
Mm.
Right, I recovered fairly quickly and I was back in the classroom. And when Tabassum passed away, we had actually done a sort of a small photograph of her with a couple of our notes from the classroom for her, and we had put it at the back of the classroom. So as a teacher, when I was standing at the front of the classroom, I could see that photo all the time.
Mm.
Right. When I came back from the hospital and I was all right, I was teaching, the first thing that I saw was the photo. And I think there was, I wouldn't really call it a moment, but I think that did something. And I think while I had a very, intellectual understanding of differences and opportunities and uh, equity and all of these things, I think that moment really made it very real that two human beings had the same
Yeah.
problem or the
Hmm.
same illness. One is back and the other is not. And the gap was purely, access to opportunities, access
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
resources, healthcare, and in many ways also access to education. Because, I remember talking to her parents and a lot, and them saying that they did not know that this was happening
Yeah.
because they were engaged in
Hmm.
work that took up almost 18 hours of their day, and they could not read.
Identify.
uh, yeah, they could not read,
Yeah.
so they did not know that this was happening even if it was on newspapers. And
Hmm.
because they did not have like a TV at home, uh, they did not sort of see the news or something. So like multiple reasons, and like this socioeconomic gap really showed up. And I think I felt that more than ever in that moment, which is where I knew that I wanted to be in this space and
Right.
wanted to do something in this space. The reason we chose to do what we do today, or I chose to do what I do today, is because I was a teacher at Teach for India. And I think that was a foundational experience for me. And I found that, government school teachers did not have any support. So in
Hmm.
that school that I was teaching, I became friends with a lot of government school teachers in the school. And I noticed that a lot of them actually wanted to teach, but no one was willing to support them
Yeah.
in the way that worked for them.
Hmm.
Right? It is like there was support available, but it wasn't customized or it wasn't relevant for them.
Hmm.
And that is where I think I figured that maybe this is the area that I could do something,
Hmm.
because now I have some experience, although very little, but some experience with being in the classroom, teaching in a classroom. So
Hmm.
that's how I think the journey really began. I don't know if I answered your question properly
No,
though.
you did. You did.
Uh,
Right. Um, so what if this is a hypothetical situation. What if
okay.
you had to start SEF all over again in 2026?
Okay.
And now that the space has evolved, the education space has evolved, the technology has advanced, the way we train teachers and the way the government operates in the education space has has changed drastically. What would you do
Yes.
differently? Is there something that you think that you would do differently, or there are things that you would want to keep the same?
I would actually, you know, spend, like we did, a bunch of time with the people we want to actually work with. So,
Mm,
be it teachers or students, whoever we want to work with, I would spend a lot of time with them to really figure out the challenges that they are facing and then create some kind of a program for them. What I would do differently this time, though, is I would look at some kind of a product service model where I do have a tool or a product that
mhm.
I am sort of taking on the ground, uh, and then having a service around it. And the product can does not have to be like a tangible product. The
Yeah,
product can be something like you know uh, a daily mental health session.
exactly. Yeah.
Right, it can also be a product, but something very sort of clear, I think. Um, and then sort of building around it, building support around that piece would be something that I would do right at the beginning. I think we've taken some time to arrive at that point now,
Mhm.
as an organization, because our initial piece when we started building SEF, our initial sort of uh, idea was that we will do everything that it takes to build a good school or to support a government school to become a good school. We'll do everything what is needed. So we did not have like a key, uh, like a set offering that we will have, uh, like X number of workshops or Y number of coaching
Mm.
sessions or this kind of a pedagogical approach. We've learned through the way and we build all of that. But now that I know that that is helpful, I would probably start uh,
With that.
there. I
Yeah.
start with that. Probably that's a change I would do. The second thing is I would actually um, dig up a lot of research. I'd read up on what has happened already in the past in this area.
Yeah.
Uh, what has and I'm also saying this from the point of view of, I understand that if people are listening to this and they have an idea of, they
Yeah.
want to start something, they can probably use some of these steps.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would read up on resource that is already available, evidence that is already there, to see what, as a community, we already know works, because there is no use of reinventing the wheel. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. And just to reflect on what you said, so I have read about SEF, not before this conversation, but a couple of months back. I read about SEF's work, and also I think I saw a few of your videos that you put out in YouTube. It was mainly Uttarakhand focused,
Ah,
and I saw that it's very refreshing to see that you are not just another organization working in the space, like training teachers, peer groups, and then some form of curriculum design. You are doing something differently, as in you are bringing in a lot of lenses.
yeah.
Really looking at each classroom, as in that it brings a unique set of problems. Every child is different, and really putting the use of the term child centric pedagogy. And that I felt what was very different about, simple education
Um,
education.
no,
This,
I'm glad to know that that came across in what we've put out.
yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely the intention for us.
Yeah, definitely. And that feels so inspiring at multiple levels. And this is where I would like to ask that if you get the opportunity, through this podcast, you are speaking to, as you said, many young people who are thinking the same way, that okay, we see a problem and we want to address it. And how about there are TFI fellows, there are fellows from other programs, and all of them are looking at the education space, trying to figure out that, okay, these challenges, how do we solve it? So, what do you think should be the foundation of looking at a problem from a creating or a founding an organization point of view? What should be those lenses? Because equity, we all know, but then what else? What else should we keep in
Yeah.
mind? Yeah.
I think the first lens is definitely uh, understanding your own biases towards the problem, right?
Yeah.
Often, when we see a problem, like if you look at a lot of education organizations today, a lot of them actually believe that uh, the teachers inside the classroom are not going to be like the people who are going to change education. So
Yeah.
they then build their programs or interventions with that lens in mind,
Hmm.
with that lens, right? So I think it is very necessary to be very careful about the lens that you wear. So
Yeah.
having that internal understanding, inner understanding of how you see the world,
Hmm.
and then being very cautious of whether that lens is actually serving the purpose or not,
Right.
right? So that's the first step. So if I am, for example, if I am trying to build a menstrual hygiene program, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that actually women who do not use the modern uh, sanitary products
Yeah.
are doing that because they don't want to use it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then the way I build the program will be very different from if I start by believing, or if I start by seeing that they want to use it, but there are social
Yeah.
challenges, financial challenges, challenges to have access, challenges of understanding that are there.
Hmm.
So in both these cases, the way I design my program will look very different. So being very aware, so that's the first thing. Second is also going deeper into the problem. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that I heard very early on, and that I keep very close to my heart, is this idea that there is actually, for a lot of developmental challenges, the important thing is to understand the problem better. And as you spend more time in this space,
Yeah.
even if you can't come up with a solution, your understanding of the problem will keep improving,
Hmm.
right? So it is very important that you actually go in, understand the problem deeply.
Hmm.
because sometimes the solution is actually very simple if you
Right.
understand the problem well. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, the second lens that I would keep. Uh, the third piece I would say, and this is the last thing I would say, is looking at whatever research and evidence has
Yeah.
already happened,
Hmm.
and this can also be like for example, if we are working with if you're working with humans, then uh, reading up on gender, reading up on caste here if you're in India, reading up on uh, religion, on the history of the place. All of that is very important because they, in many ways, impact the intervention and how you design the intervention. So, keeping all of that in mind is very important. So, doing those things, I think, will be very, very helpful.
I think I agree on the point that evidence and then mixed with context of the place, and that
Yeah,
would,
that's it.
yeah, that would make the intervention more informed. I completely agree. And this is where we reach the problem of funders.
Yeah,
Because now, in today's day, the funding is skewed across the board. There is no funding or very little funding. And if there's funding, there is a list of, okay, what you can do and cannot do. So,
yeah.
how does it look like from a founder's table? How does it look like, and how do you navigate the challenge of funding?
So, like, this is what I've understood uh, so far, that fundraising is a sine curve, like a sinusoidal curve. So
Yeah.
it goes up and down, ebbs and flows. Uh, for some people, the frequency of the curve is longer. Some people it's shorter. So there are people who probably is have raised a lot of money
Hmm.
and they are doing well and they will continue to do well for a while.
Hmm.
Uh, but then things will change because the ecosystem is changing, right? At one point, access to schools was very important.
Hmm.
So a
Hmm.
lot of organizations
Yeah.
which were working on access were very heavily funded. But then it moved to foundational learning,
True.
uh, SEL, and things like that. So there are going to be these waves which are going to impact the funding cycles.
Right.
And we have to continue to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
So the
Evolve.
first thing is
Yeah.
exactly, uh, which does not necessarily mean that we have to change the program,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Hmm.
we have to understand that how do we navigate these challenges and how do we build an understanding of the current wave and the current focus, and then how do we position ourselves.
Yeah.
The thing here is that um, like as a as someone starting up, you should be very clear
Right.
that there is no point in this journey where you will reach a place where funding will be sorted for life,
True.
unless obviously I don't know, like unless you suddenly get acquired by someone or like a major donor writes you $100 million check or something like that.
Hmm.
You are always going to have struggles with fundraising. The quantum of it, the kind of it, the nature of it might be different.
Hmm.
And I know this because I speak to a lot of different people. A lot of my friends are founders of different organizations. And even the ones who are sort of visibly well funded, they also have certain challenges,
Hmm.
right? They also are struggling to raise money for something that they feel is very important, versus some of us are probably struggling to raise money for a wider
Hmm.
a variety of things. For some of us, we are struggling to raise 2 crores, which is 50% of our budget. For some of us, we are struggling to raise 10 crores, which is maybe 10% of our budget, but it is still you know a massive number.
True.
So those challenges are going to be there for sure. I think in terms of how I see this is that one, if we are able to build clarity of the program that we are in,
Hmm.
that we are running, and the program that we are sort of championing, uh, we will be able to find the kind of people who will be willing to fund us.
Right.
People, my understanding is that people generally fund you because either they believe deeply in the cause, they
Hmm.
believe in the way you are solving the program, you are solving the problem, or they believe in you,
Hmm.
right? Either of these three things.
Hmm.
And figuring out who, when you go out to someone, what is the archetype of this person? Is this person someone who believes in the cause, or believes in your approach, or believes in you? What
Hmm.
is the kind of person this person is? And based on that, how do you pitch? So if there is someone who, is bets on humans
Hmm.
and says that, I
Right.
will fund this because Rema is leading this program, then going into that conversation with your story is more helpful. Versus if there is someone who's more logical and will fund because the approach is critical and the approach is evidence based, then going into the conversation with the approach and the evidence of the approach is important. Someone who funds the problem, then going in with a critical insight
Yeah.
that is unique is going to be important. So that way, knowing who you are reaching out to is helpful. I think when we struggle with funding, it's also an invitation to look at two things. One is, are we reaching out to the right people? And two, is our program actually well designed
Mhm.
to create impact? Because sometimes, if a lot of people are saying no to you, that might actually mean that you need to relook at your program as well,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes we ignore that piece altogether, saying that, well, because we also know that for every 10 funders you reach out to, probably one will say yes. So we feel like if Naina is saying no, that has to happen because, only one will say yes. But
Hmm.
that's like, while that's also true,
Yeah.
but it does not take away from the fact that it gives us an opportunity to reflect on our program and design it better as well.
Hmm. Okay. That was a lot of information.
Yeah,
Um,
that was
but this brings me to two things. One
okay.
is so when we talk about funders, naturally we would have, like you said, we would have a story or a pitch that we take to them. And so the question of creating a portfolio or generating evidence from your own work brings me to the question of, generating evidence as an organization. Because the
Mhm.
impact of education is often slow. If we say that, okay, I'm improving learning outcomes for X number of students, then the reflection of the improved learning outcome will take quite some time.
Yeah.
So what then? Like, we know that all organizations do have to churn out evidences and churn out shiny looking portfolios so as to communicate with funders. And what do you think? What is Simple Education Foundation's approach? That is it what moves people, or is it what is real?
So I think short answer is always it is what is real, uh, because the donors or the funders or the partners who will stick with you
Yeah.
are the ones who see that your understanding of the impact
Hmm.
is actually honest, right? And that when you are the ones who will see that if you are struggling to make growth in a certain year,
Hmm.
you've been able to also identify the challenges, and in the next year you're working on those challenges, so they will be able to see that. Because see, anyone who is funding you today
Hmm.
or will fund you, we can take this for granted that they are smart people,
Hmm.
right? uh, so they can see that through, right? If you are going in with a shiny deck which is deeply greenwashed or like whatever
Yeah.
impact washed,
Mhm.
they will see through it. So there's no point doing that. It is much better to go and say that this year actually we've really struggled to uh, move the needle,
Hmm.
and these are our hypotheses, and this is something that we feel is the reason why this has happened, and this is how we are changing our approach next year, or this is how we are tweaking the approach next year. It's very similar to what as a teacher I did right in the classroom. When a student did not understand, I went back, saw that where is the
Mhm.
student struggling, what can I change about my instruction, rather than going and telling the students parents that, oh, no, this person's done well in this other thing and all of that. Right. I presented the truth, the fact and then told what am I going to do about it. So
Hmm.
that's the process. With respect to evidence, I think one thing that is very important to understand is that you don't need to generate your own evidence on day one,
Yeah.
right? You need to be very clear of, like, when you start off, then you need to have very deep evidence of the problem. You
Mm-hmm.
need to have some kind of an evidence which backs your approach. So, for example, for us, if we are working with teacher coaches and we are seeing that, teacher development is going to accelerate and student learning, hence, is going to accelerate if we can ensure instructional coaching inside every classroom. So, the initial few years, what we have to consistently push for is the global evidence around it, that globally we already know that
This
coaching
has. Hmm.
is working and
Yes.
coaching helps. And there are meta studies, there are sort of studies in different countries which have a similar context to India. So
Hmm.
bringing in that data, that's the evidence we bring in the first few years. And along with that, we also showcase what are we doing,
Right.
right, with it, right? What are we doing, what are the shifts that we are seeing uh, as we are implementing our program.
Right.
That is very important for us to also show. So you're not showing that the program's creating impact, but
Hmm.
what you are showing is that because we are taking this approach, these are certain markers that we are seeing, and those markers are actually the milestones to the end goal that you have. So
Yeah.
if you can show that, that's helpful. And for that, you actually need to have a very good understanding of your program,
Hmm.
of your uh, of your intervention. So that's where I think the uh, key lies. And it's a learning curve. It is not something that you can sit down on day one and figure out fully,
Hmm.
but it is a learning curve, and it's something that you have to constantly sort of evolve with.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
So so during our conversation on funders, you said that how the space gradually changes or drastically changes with technological improvement and developments. And right now, what we see is an increasingly emphasized focus on AI,
yeah,
especially from the government, from the funders, everywhere around. Everyone is talking about AI. And
yeah.
you spoke about teacher mentoring, teacher coaching, and how does SEF integrate AI into the space? Do you think it's important?
I think so. Technology in itself, uh, I think, has is very powerful as a tool, right?
Right.
And AI is one of the things that is there right now that is uh, up and coming in the technology space.
Yeah.
As with any new thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is always advisable to be cautious. So while we, use AI, are we being cautious of, potential impact on environment, potential impact on privacy, digital privacy, and things like that.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think so. Everything has to be taken with that kind of caution.
Hmm.
Having said that, we are actually at SEF very uh, we look at technology as a as a positive influence in our work. So we believe that for us to work at scale, we
Hmm.
need to use technology effectively.
Yeah.
So right now, we are also building a few tools using AI that are going to, help us with understanding our data better, that are going to help us support our teachers better. So
Yeah.
we are sort of experimenting with a couple of things. I
Hmm.
think we'll soon also come out with, probably, like, share something in that front as well. But right now, in a very experimental kind of a phase, piloting kind of a phase, to see what works, what does not work. But what we've made sure is that whatever we are building, we are consistently testing it out with the our end partners. So for
Right.
us, if we are building something for teachers, we are consistently testing it out with for the teachers to ensure that it's actually something that is going to be useful for them.
Hmm.
Because I think with AI, one of the things that we are seeing is that there is a rise of things that are not necessary at all, right? Like something as simple as now everybody creates really elaborate documents for every small thing because
Yeah.
they can do it using ChatGPT or Claude and
Yeah.
all of these things, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you just need like a short paragraph,
Hmm.
but because with AI we can create a one pager, we'll create a
Elaborate.
one pager,
Yeah. Yes.
right? So sometimes those are not necessary. So being aware of those things, I think, is very important. That
Hmm.
what is necessary, what is not necessary, what will be useful at
Hmm.
the end of the day, right? We might be able to create a 10-page, extremely detailed lesson plan, but if the teacher does not use it at
It
all,
is
it is of
impractical.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is not helpful at all. Versus if I just create a postcard size infographic or a
Hmm.
flow chart that helps the teacher uh, conduct a lesson better,
Hmm.
that's much better. So just understanding the relevance of whatever is the output with the use of these technology pieces is going to be very, very critical. I personally feel that we should not completely disregard AI, saying that no, this is not going to, this is a fad and this will just pass. I don't think that will happen.
No.
At the same time, I also feel that it is important to be cautious and it is important to see how we use it,
Hmm.
right? And what are the larger implications of it on the society as well?
Yeah.
Because, like right now, we know for a fact that data centers across the world are polluting our soil, our groundwater,
Yeah.
our rivers. So, those are things that I think as a society and as like people in the development space, we need to be more aware of, we need to be more careful about.
Right.
So that's definitely there. Um, and I think that's probably like the challenge that we have to navigate uh, as a country, as the world, or as like people who are engaged in this kind of work.
But so I have spent the last couple of years working in Tripura with teachers in teacher training and structured classroom resources. And what I have seen is many a times teachers are often unfamiliar with technology. They are not in a space or place to use um I think to use Google Forms properly,
Yeah,
bad network, or if it's in a different language, there's a bottleneck there. And
yeah,
so in this reality, where the reality is so complex that if you go 20 kilometers away from the urban hubs, you lose network. If that's the terrain, because SEF works in Uttarakhand. And
yeah,
so what happens then if we make a, say, we make a WhatsApp chat bot for teachers, which
ah,
is true for so many organizations working in this space, and they're constantly trying to tweak and improve that. Okay, we are training the teachers, but what if there is a need for 24/7 support? And so we pitch the idea of building a chatbot, which is very
yeah, yeah,
true. It is happening, but what if the teacher is not equipped with AI knowledge? What if you do not have a network? So for example, earlier this month I went to a school which was so remote that there were no networks, no towers at all. It was completely isolated, and if you go there, there was no electricity even. And what
yeah,
happens if you are in a school like that? What would you
yeah,
do with a chatbot? So what does
absolutely.
the conversation around equity lead us, you know?
I think like this is a question that needs a different kind of a discussion.
Yeah.
But I feel that understand hence like at the beginning I said, right, the understanding the context is very important. So when you design it, you need
Yeah.
to know that if this is relevant, this is useful. Because
Mm.
if it is not useful, then even some of the most sophisticated solutions are like they're just not useful, right?
Yeah.
uh, so you need to ensure that whatever you're building you are keeping in mind and you are working closely with the people who are going to use it,
Yeah.
right?
In
So
this
that
case, the teachers.
in this case the teachers, so that's very very important that you do that. In terms of the, I feel one of the reasons why we have this, surge of WhatsApp and bots and different sort
Yeah.
of, interventions via WhatsApp is because WhatsApp is probably one of those applications today which has the
Easy
highest
to
penetration.
use. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that almost everyone knows how to use it.
Yeah.
So that's why probably the choice of WhatsApp.
Hmm.
Now, um, I think if there are cases like the one that you are mentioning, there I'm sure there are technology solutions or there are programmatic solutions to
Yeah.
this. So then, when does the teacher use the chatbot? Do they use it in the school? Are
Mm.
we able to create the chatbot in a way that they are able to use it when they are at home and when they are planning?
Mm-hmm.
And if we are using it, if we are sort of intending that they use it when they are at home, then are we able to give them the kind of responses that is going to ensure that they don't have to spend a lot of time at home doing this?
Hmm.
If the process of getting a lesson plan in place takes me 45 minutes
Mm-hmm.
using my WhatsApp chatbot, probably the teacher is not going to use it when they are at home, right? Or
Definitely.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Versus if we can bring that time down to maybe a few minutes and
Hmm.
they can do like a voice note or something on those lines,
Yeah.
then probably the chances of them using it while they are going to school or while they're at home and things like that increases. But all of this will only happen when we understand the user better, when
Hmm.
we understand the teacher's challenges better. Uh, and over here also, I think there are two camps, right? One who feel that can we build a product that is going to reach to maximum number of people
Hmm.
and create the highest impact,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? And then there is a camp where we are saying that can we ensure that it reaches out to all people,
Yeah.
even if that means
The
that
impact
we
is,
will
yeah.
compromise a little bit on the impact, but
Hmm.
it is better to ensure that everyone is getting at
Access.
least something
Hmm.
than just a few people getting a lot of it.
Right.
Right. There are two camps to it, and I don't want to sort of say which one is. I don't think there's like a
Yes.
right or the wrong
Hmm.
camp to be in. This is just the approach that you are looking at. And the thing is that we need people on both sides. We need people who are going to ensure that, if out of 100 schools, 80 schools have access to the best tools, they get access to the best tools.
Yeah.
And then there we need organizations who are also ensuring that the remaining 20
These
have
schools are
access
covered.
to
Yes.
something. Right. So we need both of them to be in the place.
Yeah, true. This was very valuable. We are at the very end of our conversation, it seems.
Yes.
And this would be something, this part is called a ray of hope, or
Okay.
we would bring some sunshine into this discussion. And
Okay.
yeah, the question is, going back to where we started, young people who are just entering the education development space, if you have to sort of imbibe some values into them, and sort of telling them that, okay, this is a path that maybe you should choose, what is it that you would like to say? That, okay, values, lenses, we already covered lenses, so maybe just
Uh,
values. Yeah.
I think, like, I don't know if, because I think everybody will bring in their own flavor to the
Yeah.
sector and to the world. So I
Mhm.
think that is also very valid. I can only tell you a couple of things that I have learned on my way.
Mhm.
And the hope is that probably some of you, like people who are listening to this, young and old, will probably resonate to them and, like, figure out accordingly. One thing that I have seen is that one thing that I've learned is that there is value in excellence always. If you are good at something and you're very good at that, then you are always going to have an upper hand, right? So ensuring that you are able to figure out certain pieces where
Mhm.
you want to really master is very, very important. Be it, design, be it monitoring, evaluation, be it communication, fundraising, or whatever. Certain things that if you are able to master that, you are always going to do well. The second piece, which is aligned to this, is that it takes time to master things. So
Hmm.
if we are in that space where we feel that every year we should, you know, uh, get a promotion, or we should go to a new place to uh, work because there is a more exciting project or something like
Yeah.
that, that might not always help in uh, becoming a master at something,
Hmm.
or really sort of becoming excellent at something. So patience is very important, sticking to something is very important, ensuring that you are seeing something end to end
Hmm.
is very important, even if you're not doing everything in that whole process,
Yeah.
but being there in that journey from end to end is very important. So that's the second thing that I have learned. The third thing that I have learned is also keeping your eyes and ears open for what is happening in the world. So
Hmm.
sometimes what happens in our own work, we get so focused in our work and in our own organization that we don't look at what is happening in other organizations, what is happening in the world, what is happening in academia, um, and also what is happening in absolutely different spheres. Like for example, someone who's in gender, if they have no idea of what is happening in AI,
Hmm.
then probably it will become difficult for them to integrate AI into their work or technology into their work. So also keeping that lens, that what is happening in the world, what are other things that are happening, and how can I learn from them. So that's very, very important. And that is something that we all have to do on our own time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that there is an expectation that for me, my organization is going to create spaces where I can learn this,
Hmm.
right? Uh, Definitely, I think that is a responsibility of every organization to ensure that their teams are learning. But the organization is always going to be limited in their ability to do that,
Yeah.
right? Fully and in a personalized manner. So
Hmm.
you have to always step up and figure out what you can do,
Yeah.
right? And how you can learn better, learn more, and things like that. Like I think something like what you are doing right now,
Hmm.
setting up a podcast, having a conversation, building a podcast, such a great opportunity to learn about different organizations, know about their work. So I think just doing things like that, reading, listening, those are things that are going to be very, very helpful. Unfortunately, that is also something that I'm seeing fewer and fewer people do.
Hmm.
So that's something that I'm going to definitely say is very, very important. Um, and the fourth thing, which is also the last thing I would say,
Hmm.
is working on yourself,
Yeah.
becoming just more aware of who you are, what kind of person you want to be, what are the values that you uh, live by, what are the values that come easily to you, what are the values that you want to espouse, but you find it difficult to live up to those values. How
Hmm.
can you take that journey? So constantly working on yourself is very, very important,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, in the development space, I think a lot of our decisions come from our own being. And
Hmm.
if we are not aware of who we are, then the decisions that we will take will also be a reflection of that.
Hmm.
Uh, so ensuring that we are sort of engaging in reflection and activities that help us understand ourselves better is extremely important.
Yeah. So what I gathered was a lot of learning, a lot of
Yeah,
learning from everywhere that we can experience, and we have to find those windows for ourselves to try and continue the journey.
yeah,
So yeah, I think this was super helpful, and I think people listening to this later in a few weeks would also find this as helpful as I am finding it today. So yeah, thank you so much
I
for
hope so.
doing this. Yeah,
Thank you, Rema.
thank you so much for doing this. We are at the end of the discussion. Uh, and yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.